This man has been erratic from day one, but it has gotten worse. He has, as Douglas Brinkley said, a confused mental state that has gotten worse. We're not diagnosing anything, but there is no doubt that there is something impacting his thought process.
Something is wrong with him.
The
Republican Party is enabling the mental illness on a daily basis.
We're oddly influential with the guy who wants to kill us.
The mainstream media ramping up their attacks on President Trump, suggesting he's now suffering from a dangerous mental illness. And the media aren't the only ones questioning his sanity. More than 800 mental health professionals have formed a group called Duty to Warn. Their mission to warn Americans that Mr. Trump must be removed from office because he's dangerous. Joining me now to defend those accusations is psychologist and founding member of Duty to Warn, Dr. John Gartner. Have you evaluated the president face-to-face?
No, I haven't, but I don't need to evaluate the president face-to-face.
How do you not need to evaluate someone if you're going to diagnose their mental health?
Actually, a personal evaluation is the least statistically reliable way to diagnose someone. We actually can diagnose people much more reliably by their behavior and by reports of people who know them well. And so we know that if Donald Trump literally means the things he said, then he would be psychotic.
What reports of friends that know President Trump well have you relied on?
Well, I'm actually working a book on Donald Trump's tweets right now, and just using his own words, if we believe the things that he says... So
you're not relying on any of his friends, you said?
I haven't interviewed any of his friends.
Okay, but you just said that's one of the ways that you diagnose someone.
Well, we have reports from, for example, his biographer, multiple biographers, and others. We can read the reports.
Authorized biographers or unauthorized?
Well, actually both.
Okay. You're saying you diagnosed the president as psychotic through his tweets. Would you like to explain that?
Well, there's one of two possibilities. If he actually believes he had the biggest crowd size and he was tapped by Obama, these are classic grandiose and persecutory delusions. The other option is that he's a psychopathic liar.
Okay, well, 1 second. So you're saying he brags about his crowd size. Isn't that just politics? You know, they were saying Hillary's winning, and he's saying I have these huge crowds. I can't be losing that badly. I must be doing much better than all the polls suggest. That's just politics.
A delusion is holding on rigidly to a demonstrably false belief despite all reason and contrary fact.
Well, he had 40,000 people in an outside crowd in Alabama. It's a lot of people. It's more than President Obama had down there.
Okay, but he didn't have the largest crowd size. But he tells two kinds of lies. Those he tells to others and those he tells to himself to meet his fantasy world. So in Donald Trump's fantasy world, he's the greatest ever. So, poof, like I Dream of Jeannie.
What about when President Obama said that when he was going to be elected, the sea levels were going to come down? That's kind of grandiose, wouldn't you say?
I'm actually not familiar with that quote.
It's a very famous quote. Yeah. What about, you say President Trump lies. What about when President Obama said if you like your health care plan, you can keep it? Named Lie of the Year by PolitiFact.
Well, PolitiFact also says that Donald Trump lies 78% of the time. Politico says he lies every 3 minutes and 15 seconds.
What do you think the president's lie is, and how does that make him psychotic?
Well, I'm saying that actually he suffers from something called malignant narcissism, where he is both a liar and has paranoid, persecutory ideas.
What has he lied about?
Well, that's a long list.
Can you name one thing?
Well, what we're talking about is crowd size. What about the 3 million immigrants that were bused to New Hampshire to fake the vote? That would be like the equivalent of the D-Day landing.
He never said that there were 3 million immigrants bused to New Hampshire. That's not true. That's not true. Malignant narcissism, that's interesting. So you are equating him with Adolf Hitler, if I read that correctly.
Right.
Don't you think that's irresponsible for you to do that as a trained professional?
I think it would be irresponsible not to. You know, I was raised with the phrase never again, meaning if you see a Hitler-like leader, even if it's a Hitler-light rising, you need to say something.
So how is Trump comparable to Hitler?
Well, they share the same diagnosis, malignant narcissism. It has 4 components: narcissism, paranoia, antisocial personality.
How is President Trump paranoid?
Well, all of his crazy conspiracy theories.
Like what?
He believes that Anthony Scalia was murdered. He believes that Barack Obama had the head of Vital Records in Hawaii murdered to cover up his birth certificate. He believes Ted Cruz's father was part of the Kennedy assassination. I mean, these are wild, crazy ideas.
Don't you think that's just playing politics in order to get ahead of your opponents?
So the best case scenario is that he's a lying psychopath. Unfortunately, it's worse than that. He has two kinds of lies, those he tells others and those he tells himself.
I'd be pretty paranoid, too, if the mainstream media was out to get me and the Democrats were trying to impeach me. And, you know, he might have been surveilled. So I think that might, you know, account for his paranoia. So again, how is he like someone that gassed 6 million Jews and invaded an entire continent?
Well, he has demonized minorities.
How's he done that?
Well, he's demonized immigrants. He's demonized
How has
Muslims.
he done that? Because he wants to build a wall to protect Americans from illegal immigration, narcotics, and gangs?
Well, he's demonized Mexicans, saying they're rapists. He
said some rapists come across the border, and that's true if you look at the statistics. Doctor, I understand your diagnosis, and I'm looking here. The Goldwater Rule states that mental health professionals aren't allowed to diagnose public figures that they haven't evaluated. So you're violating the Goldwater Rule, and you're actually possibly the one that might be having delusions of grandeur because you think that you are going to save America from Donald Trump, and I just don't think that adds up.
I've told people I've dedicated my life to a hopeless cause. I'm not that grandiose to think that I'm going to remove Donald Trump.
But you're telling everybody that this guy is going to murder the rest of the country if we don't get him out of office.
He might. Seems
a little paranoid and delusional from you, if you don't mind me saying that.
But to answer your first question, we have a duty to warn. If somebody is dangerous, then we violate even our most sacred principle of confidentiality to warn potential victims.
Okay, well, I have been warned. I don't know if I'm going to heed the warning, but, Doctor, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Because of the attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news.
I know, but aren't you...
Yeah.
He says he knows nothing about it, hasn't seen any of these reports. Is that a problem?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he was watching CNN fake news. What do you think?
Let me just mention briefly one threat in particular that should concern all Americans. Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike, especially those who serve in our Congress. The epidemic of malicious fake news and false propaganda that flooded social media over the past year, it's now clear that so-called fake news can have real-world consequences.